Omicron has now hit the United States. There's been one case detected in California, which means I guess we have to have a travel ban from California. Sorry, guys. In a White House news briefing, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the greatest of all doctors except for the much ballyhooed Joe Biden, he announced that it was one person who traveled from South Africa on November 22nd and tested positive for COVID-19 on November 29th. That person is self-quarantining. Close contacts have tested negative. The person was fully vaxxed and is experiencing mild symptoms, which are improving at this point. Again, I remind you, there is no evidence that Omicron is more deadly than Delta. In fact, there's some evidence that Omicron is less deadly than Delta. But according to Anthony Fauci, even if you believe that Omicron is less deadly than Delta, you shouldn't be sanguine. So he was asked a simple question, was Dr. Anthony Fauci. Okay, and the question was, asked by a reporter, let's say that Omicron is more transmissible but less deadly than Delta. Wouldn't it be good for people to get Omicron as opposed to Delta? Wouldn't that be better? Because then, you assume that everybody's going to get Delta. As I've said before, there is no world in which people just live completely virus-free for the rest of time. It's like the flu. It's like the common cold. You're going to get it. You're either going to get immunity through natural processes, or you're going to get immunity through the vax. So if you now have to choose between getting one of these two variants, Delta or Omicron, if it turns out that Omicron is less deadly than Delta, wouldn't you rather have Omicron? So the reporter asked Fauci that. He's like, no, never. No one must ever get this disease. No one. So they just keep baiting and switching. They're like, yes, it's endemic. Yes, we're going to have to learn to live with the virus, but no one should ever get it. Good luck with that, dude.
Would there be any public health benefit to furthering its spread by lifting travel restrictions, for example, so it can outcompete the Delta variant?
You're talking about something really dangerous. You're talking about let a lot of people get infected to see if, in fact, you could protect them. That's something that I think almost all infectious disease people with any knowledge about infectious disease would not say that's a good idea.
So I'm just wondering why he says that. Is he challenging the idea of natural immunity? Is that what he's doing right there? Because natural immunity is a well-established epidemiological fact. In fact, the data on Delta suggests that a natural immunity to Delta is probably more durable than vaccine immunity. Despite the CDC's protestations to the contrary, there are Israeli studies demonstrating that that's probably not true. The CDC's protestations, that is. So Anthony Fauci says, are you suggesting that we let people get sick to get natural immunity? No, I'm suggesting you have no ability to stop the spread of disease. That everything you have attempted to do has been a giant failure, including the mask mandates and the lockdowns. And so you're going to have to choose how you wish to live with this. But Fauci is just a bag of mixed messages. Why the White House continues to trot out this person who has lost all public trust is beyond me.
At what point does the booster become part of the mandate?
Yeah, I can't answer that right now, but I know that for the time being, the official definition of fully vaccinated is 2.
But do you see that changing? We keep having these variants. We're concerned about them.
It could change. It could change. It could change, yes.
Do you recommend it change?
Well, I don't know. Let's see what rolls out now. I mean, I know if I say it's going to change, it's going to get spread out. That's it. We don't know right now whether it should change, but it might.
It might change. It might not. But it might change, but it also might not. But it might change. Again, they have no approach here. They're just pretending they have an approach. And by the way, again, there's no evidence that the vaccines are not standing up to this thing, at least in terms of hospitalization and death, which is the only thing I care about. I'm going to keep repeating this until people get it through their thick skulls. It does not matter if you get Omicron, if you don't get that sick. I don't understand why this is remotely controversial. All 3 of my kids had colds this week. They're all fine because this is called living as a human being on planet Earth. People get sick as long as they're not threatened with serious conditions or death. Who gives a crap? Even the Biden administration used to say this. Now apparently that they just can't make up their minds. And again, the fact that they can't make up their minds underscores what I have been saying now for months, for more than a year at this point. People who refuse to acknowledge that government cannot solve all of their problems are the same people who believe that we have to keep locking down, and we have to keep being scared, because after all, if they ever admit that government can't solve all of our problems, we might actually start taking our lives into our own hands. And wouldn't that be a disaster? Wouldn't that be a disaster? Here's a top research scientist on CNBC saying, yeah, by the way, it looks kind of like the vaccines are durable against Omicron, and you're all panicking because you're stupid.
T cells are what's really protecting us from severe disease, from COVID pneumonia. And our T cells are very insensitive, not affected by variants to any significant degree. So there's lots of reasons for optimism that this is not, some horrible situation that we're in. The vaccine should hold up against severe disease, especially with people who are boosted.
Okay, so what are we panicking over exactly? Well, what exactly are we panicking over? Okay, so the answer is, again, it goes to the root baseline belief of Democrats, of many people on the left, that they are capable of fixing your life if you give them control. This is true in economics. It's true in social life. It is true when it comes to disease. Ron Klain put out the most insane tweet of the day yesterday. So this is the actual chief of staff of the White House. Ron Klain is the shadow president because Joe Biden is no longer with us. He sadly departed this earth, at least on a mental level. I mean, if we're talking about viability, I'm not sure that Joe Biden is viable at this point as a human. Joe Biden left us many, many months ago. Ronald Klain is the guy who's actually making policy at the White House. So there's a columnist named Greg Ip who writes for the Wall Street Journal. And he says, COVID carved a partisan divide through the United States. Democrats have been much more cautious and protective, which manifests itself as generally lower infections and deaths, but also much weaker economic outcomes. Omicron could perpetuate that. Okay, so here's the thing. It sort of depends on the state as far as deaths per million ratio, because New York did worse than Florida. And New York is about the same size as Florida. Florida was much more open. But focus in on the economic statement right there, right, where he's correct about this, that they are killing their own economies. Ron Klain tweets out, quote, "Nope. Stronger COVID measures produce stronger economic outcomes. That's why jobs, growth, and economic activity are up this year significantly over last year." It's so insane that he says this, it's almost difficult to know where exactly to begin. It's like, really? Stronger COVID measures produce stronger economic outcomes, which is why we're up this year? No, we're up this year because people got vaccinated and they went back to work. That's why we're up this year. Your own president says this, but he's saying that it's stronger COVID measures like lockdowns, presumably, and mask mandates that generate stronger economic If that's the case, why wasn't strong economic growth the thing last year? After all, we actually locked in our houses for months at a time last year. We mask mandated. I was living in California last year, and let me tell you, that place was that place was locked down tighter than a tick. And economic growth was completely stagnant. It destroyed the economy of the state. So Ronald Klain is just crazy. Stronger COVID measures produce stronger economic outcomes. Again, just get rid of COVID there and the word stronger economic. And bottom line is, that sentence without any of those signifiers would read, stronger measures produce stronger outcomes. That is the Democratic Party platform in a nutshell. Stronger measures produce stronger outcomes. More regulation, more top-down control produces stronger outcomes. Now, it's a lie. It's been a lie. It was a lie in the Soviet Union with regard to the economy, and it's a lie with regard to COVID and the economy. And by the way, when I say it's a lie, I don't mean that he's just getting it wrong. I mean he is a liar, because this is perfectly available data. Patrick Ruffini, who is a Republican pollster, he put out a chart showing the percent of jobs recovered since the beginning of the pandemic by state. Okay, here are the top states in terms of percentage of jobs that have returned since the beginning of the pandemic. Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Texas, Montana, South Dakota, Georgia, Nebraska, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, North Carolina. Not a blue state among them. The only state that I just listed that has a blue governor is North Carolina, which again is a state that tends to go red in presidential elections. So every single state I just mentioned in terms of jobs recovered, percentage of jobs recovered, is a red state. Every single one. But you have Ronald Klain saying that no, lockdown measures are actually helpful to the economy. Okay, fine. So if you believe that, why not just lock it all back down? Now the answer is the markets think that that's what these guys believe. This is why the Dow is just getting destroyed. Okay, so the Dow finished 460 points lower on Tuesday. According to the CNBC, the major averages fell sharply, giving up solid gains on Wednesday after the CDC and Prevention confirmed the first case of Omicron in the U.S. Markets are not afraid of Omicron. Markets are afraid of these insane, idiotic public health officials locking down you again. That is what markets are afraid of. And they should be afraid of that because these morons have run the economy into the ground in what should be the middle of the easiest recovery in American history, because the economy was put into an artificial coma last year. And then vaccines came, and we were all supposed to be like ready to go. And now they're talking about how stronger COVID measures produce stronger economic outcomes. It's no wonder that Joe Biden is down in the high 30s, low 40s in terms of public approval rating. Meanwhile, he's just out there babbling nonsensically to himself about economic matters. He said yesterday that he built the economic recovery. No, you have stagnated an economic recovery that was perfectly natural. And this guy is the biggest placebo effect when it comes to the economy in American history. Except it turns out that the placebo wasn't a placebo. He may be killing the patient. Here's Joe Biden.
We're seeing more new small businesses, higher wages, and more disposable income. Fewer children in poverty, fewer people getting unemployment checks. None of this was inevitable. It was because of the American Rescue Plan, which virtually every Democrat in Congress voted for and every Republican voted against. It was because of the hard work my administration has done to try to solve the challenges in our economy instead of just pointing fingers and complaining.
Nope, you did not build the economic recovery. Your economic recovery has been rife with inflation, which was completely unnecessary because you decided to pay people to stay home. So you have an undersupply of labor, we have supply chain shortages, and you blew money into the economy. We didn't need to do that. We didn't need to do it. You did that. What you built here is the failure of the economy. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is still babbling to himself about how his plan to battle inflation is working. Really? Is it? Is it really working so well? Here is Joe Biden saying something completely nonsensical, as is his wont.
Prices are still Prices are still out of sync as the world comes back. But as we continue to overcome these obstacles, the more price pressures will ease. But I have not been content to sit back and wait. I've used every tool available to address the price increases, and it's working.
Really? Is it working now? Because because actually Jerome Powell came out yesterday and he said that inflation is no longer transitory. So is it working particularly well, Joe? Is it? Meanwhile, Joe Biden is still promoting more spending. More spending. Build Back Better is going to fix everything.
Now my Republican friends are talking a lot about prices, but they're lined up against my Build Back Better plan, which would go right at the problem for rising costs for families. Why is that? I don't want to speculate on anyone's motive, but it's always easier to complain about a problem than to try to fix it.
Oh, really? I noticed that that's all you do is complain about problems that you yourself created and that you do nothing about while your Secretary of Transportation is on a 2-month paternity leave in the middle of a supply chain crisis. Meanwhile, Janet Yellen saying the same thing. She's just lying also. So Janet Yellen, again, these are all political hacks. Whenever you see the notion that there is a nonpartisan branch of the government that is filled with political appointees, just remember, Secretary Yellen was the head of the Federal Reserve until 5 minutes ago. A nonpartisan political figure. And here she is now just openly lying about Build Back Better not adding to deficits. It's not true, according to the CBO.
These investments we expect will lead to a GDP increase over the long term without increasing the national debt or deficit by $1. In fact, the offsets in these bills mean they actually reduce annual deficits over time.
Okay, so yeah, sure. We believe you. We believe you. This Biden administration. By the way, finally, at root, the Biden administration, they're just control freaks and angry old people shouting at clouds. So here's an angry old man shouting at a cloud. He's very angry that people are noticing that they're not able to gain products during the Christmas season. Here's Joe Biden shouting at people for noticing that their milk is more expensive.
If you watch the news recently, you might think the shelves in all our stores are empty across the country, that parents won't be able to get presents for their children on this holiday season. But here's the deal. For the vast majority of the country, that's not what's happening. Because of the actions the administration has taken in partnership with business and labor, retailers and grocery stores, freight movers and railroads, and those shelves are going to be stocked.
Oh, are they? Because that's not what I'm hearing from all of the people who are in industry right now. But it's you, the people, who are at fault. These, your great rulers, will be the ones who eventually decide whether you are allowed to have liberty or not. So I guess the leftist notion of governance can be summed up in the following logic. You have the right to decide your meaning of the universe, of life, of human existence when it comes to killing babies in your womb. But when it comes to your ability to actually live your life freely, we will tell you when you're allowed to live your life freely. At least when you're not killing babies. You can kill babies. That's the deal. You can kill as many babies as you want, but can you go to work today without a mask? Well, no. That we will control. If this is the kind of governance you look forward to, keep voting blue. Seriously. And stay the hell out of my state. The battle for the culture is heating up. We here at the Daily Wire are making some big moves. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, because you're not going to want to miss a single moment.